right, excellent. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in about a minute. I just want to see everybody fill into the Zoom room. And for my own fun exercise, I always like to see the geographic distribution of our prospective students. If you wouldn't mind, the Q&A function is open, so feel free to use the Q&A. If you wouldn't mind, as usual, sharing with us where you are joining us from. So, city, state, country. We love to see those details. And it's also making sure our audio is working. So, Vail, Colorado, Rebecca, I wish I was with you right now. That sounds amazing. Not a bad location. Baria's in LA. Alexi again in Moscow. So glad you can join. Sandra in Brooklyn. We have some Brooklyn representation. Damaris is going to be very excited as a Brooklyn native. Bozeman, Montana. This is phenomenal. Connecticut, excellent. Washington, D.C., another LA, Santa Cruz, California. Boy, California representation strong. Toronto, Canada. Hellas went to school in California, just throwing it out there. One of our panelists in LA, but from Miami. Excellent. I personally love to see that. I'm a Floridian, Dylan, so I love that. Ningbo, China. Wow, Joshua, thank you so much for joining us from your time zone. Murphy in the city. I hope all's well, Murphy. Good to see you here. I'm glad you're joining us. All right, excellent. So you're gonna hear me speak very briefly, and then I really want to turn it over to our alumni to share a little bit more of their stories. For those of you joining us who have not attended a virtual info session yet, I just want to give you a brief introduction to Columbia Climate School. When you think of Columbia University, we're a major research institution. Um, at the university, there's over 20 different schools. The majority of those schools are graduate professional schools. And the Climate School is the newest school to be launched at the university. It was announced in 2020 and formally launched in 2021. And our ethos is that the world requires knowledgeable leaders to work with businesses, communities, governments, and civil society to address climate change. Columbia Climate School's graduate degree programs and other learning opportunities provide an interdisciplinary knowledge base for climate leaders with diverse interests and backgrounds. And I can't lean into that word interdisciplinary enough. Some of you that have attended other sessions, I'm certain, have heard us emphasize this over and over again. But it's interdisciplinary from, of course, the lens of our curriculum here at the Climate School. We fully acknowledge climate touches everything. So we are going to be training individuals who are going to be going into various sectors and industries. You'll see that interdisciplinary nature, though, carry through also through our faculty. We have faculty who are atmospheric scientists, environmental engineers, trained lawyers, uh, deep policy backgrounds on the faculty. And then it also is a through line through our students. And you're also going to hear that from our alumni joining the session today and just hearing kind of their backgrounds and experiences that are quite diverse from one another. I also want to just give you a very brief overview of our dedicated degree program. So at the Climate School, we do have three distinct graduate degree programs now. Excitedly, we have them. We have both the MS in Climate, which is our 2-year graduate degree program. It was launched this fall 2025. We welcomed an inaugural 3 students in it. We have the MS in Climate Finance program, which is a 1-year, 39 credit hour degree program that was launched also fall 2025. Very unique degree. It's a very prescribed curriculum. Some of our colleagues describe it as a curated curriculum, really honing in and dedicated to climate finance. And it's offered in close collaboration with Columbia Business School. And that is a 1-year program. And then finally, but certainly, our tentpole degree program is the MA Climate Society. This is a 35 credit hour degree program. This is the program that launched the Climate School. It is a 1-year program, although it does offer part-time options if you were interested in part-time enrollment. And all of the alumni you are hearing from today are graduates of the Climate Society program, but it's very important to note the Climate Society degree program, I like to stress, is kind of a bit of a choose your own adventure. So these students joining us today, you're going to hear a little bit more about how they approach the Climate and Society degree, how they approach their elective journeys, and then you'll hear how it complemented their professional roles today. So stay tuned. So that now brings us to the stars of the show, the true stars of the show, and that is our alumni panel. So joining us today, first is Will Whipple, class of 2025, Erik Stein, class of 2025, Hellis Lee, class of 2024, Caroline Sacher, class of 2025, and then last but certainly not least, Emma Gugliotta, class of 2025. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think it's great to see you guys a little bit more in full, and make sure that I want to make sure if everybody is spotlighted. We've been living in a Zoom world for so long, and I'm still pretty basic at it. I got to be honest with you. So in terms of am I spotlighting you guys out of curiosity, or is it like, is everybody equal, or is it just Erik? We're cash here. We're cash. Does anybody know? Is it like four equal or five equal boxes, or is it like who's on the screen right now? I'm
You're
curious.
on my screen,
It's just me. Okay. All right. We're gonna just go
but
with
I
it. I
can
think.
see everyone
Okay.
small up top.
Okay. So we're just going with it. Damaris, if you know what I'm supposed to be doing, feel free to fix it on the back end. But I'm going to go ahead and now formally let's have the panelists introduce themselves. If I can, maybe I'm gonna go with Will first, since Will was the first name on the screen. Will, could you introduce yourself formally? If you could share kind of your education background, where you went to school, what your professional journey was leading up to the climate school, and what motivated you to attend the climate school, and then of course your professional role today. So just kind of introducing yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Nice to meet you all. Excited for you all to be talking to you today about these exciting programs. Yeah, so my background. So I went to Washington University in St. Louis undergrad. I was an engineering and finance major. Basically from there, very did a very from a business school perspective, traditional, I think, initial track out of undergrad, right? Did consulting for 3 years, tech consulting for a few years, then some strategy consulting for some life sciences companies before. And I think really somewhere, so I was kind of like on this track for a while in terms of like checking the boxes, doing everything right in terms of like I think how you prescribe like a business school exit basically from an undergrad perspective. But at a certain point it was you start to think about like what do you want. We all are theoretically going to have 35 to 40 year careers. You want to think about what that's going to look like. So I started thinking about kind of what impact I wanted to make and where I wanted to go with that, I think, over the long term. And I think the climate crisis is obviously, I mean, I think we all on this call are very focused on, is a huge issue that we're facing, maybe the most important. And so I kind of knew that that's where I wanted to go. And so basically, at a certain point, this program I think was a really cool opportunity to figure out, where I could fit in that space, right? Because it's such a big space. There's so many different things, different challenges we have, from a difficult perspective, but then also from an opportunities perspective in terms of career and where you could go from there. So that's kind of how I decided to make the decision to come to Columbia, is kind of to help me make that career transition and pivot. And yeah, and honestly, yeah, so I ended up, now I work in community solar, but so it's been a great journey. I guess anything else, Alfred, that I can add?
Yeah, can you share a little bit like your current role right now?
Yeah,
Kind of
for
what are
sure.
you
So
working
yeah,
on?
so
Yeah.
currently, yeah, so right before I joined the program, I was doing software sales for a company called Qualtrics. And so really, I guess the real only reason that's relevant is, kind of like enterprise sales and kind of that stuff. So then, I luckily had some of that professional experience. That's kind of what I do now, for a community solar developer. So I'm on the business development side, basically an account manager. We do commercial and industrial rooftop solar. So really the goal, within that, we have a lot of, partners that are, these big real estate investment trusts, right? So my job is to, a lot of them own millions and millions of rooftop square feet is kind of how we think of them. And so my job is to kind of manage the relationship with them, make sure their projects are going well, and then also try to get them to sign more leases with us and kind of do more business. And so all of this is in the point of, trying to get more solar onto the grid, more renewable energy. And so kind of, from a private market perspective, kind of solving some of the climate issues, trying to address, grid electrification, I guess in that perspective. So, or decarbonization, excuse me. So, yeah, that's what I can do. Happy to answer any questions about that role more, but yeah, that's an overview of what I do now.
Awesome, Will. Thank you so much. And now, next up, because I see on my screen, Caroline Sacher, can you give us a little bit of background? Again, education history, your reason for entering the climate school, and your kind of role today.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I feel like time has flown and I was just on these calls a little over a year ago. But I am Caroline, like Alfred said. I think climate story wise, I was always really interested in nature, started from a very young age, loved exploring tidal pools and kind of getting into nature wherever I could. And so that kind of formed me wanting to study environmental studies and public health. I did that at Tulane University in New Orleans. I'm from Boston originally, so that was a nice shift. And there I also did marine bio and studio art. So, like the climate school, it was a very interdisciplinary program. Got to do a lot of different things there. And it was one of the first times that I really felt climate change on a personal level. I didn't have 1 year down in New Orleans without some sort of climate related hazard kind of interfering with my years there. So, really wanted to kind of use that climate lens on all of the topics that I was already interested in. So went to the program right after undergrad, graduated 2024 from Tulane. And then, yeah, again, kind of that buzzword Alfred keeps using, interdisciplinary. I loved how the climate school really let you cross register and make it your own journey. Really honed into that and took as many classes as I could. Across a bunch of different schools, but also in the climate school too. And really wanted that kind of foundation of both the hard and social science related to climate. So got that there. I'm now working at ERM as a climate consultant. I'm on their climate sustainability and transactions team. So working a lot across different projects. I'm doing some basic decarbonization strategy for clients, greenhouse gas accounting. I'm coding a bit, so quant really comes in handy sometimes. um, and also getting to kind of dip my toes in some other work here, some marine related stuff. And yeah, it's been a great kind of fast paced gig so far.
That's awesome, Caroline. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that. And next up, Erik, could you share a little bit about your background, interest in the climate space? I know you're the climate finance guy, Erik. That's what I know. So I'd
Yeah,
love to hear about, again, and what you're doing currently professionally as well.
yeah, no, of course. I feel like there have been some like wines, and I think my journey is um, it's quite untraditional. But I'll kind of give like a brief overview. So I started off kind of in like a lot of like a lot of people in undergrad, like didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I did finance, which is kind of a good which is a good default kind of option if you're not really entirely passionate about any particular area. So I did finance, and then I kind of after that I got a job at a bank where I worked in their renewable energy group, and that was where I really kind of I always cared about the environment. I always cared about impact. I always wanted to do something purposeful with my career, and that was kind of an opportunity where I saw, okay, like you can actually use like you can create investments, and there are kind of investments in the world that do align with creating a better future, for climate, and obviously for kind of other development purposes. And that job kind of opened my eyes to the ability, to the power that money has in kind of fighting the climate crisis. And I knew that I didn't want to stay kind of in traditional finance, and that role was probably a bit more traditional finance. I wanted to be a bit more kind of hands on the ground. I wanted to be a bit more direct with what I was doing, and that was kind of how I found the climate school. Wanted to make a little bit of a pivot towards the space, and I really wanted to get into impact investing, which is kind of what I'm in right now. But yeah, I came to the climate school, and the climate school has um, you know it has a lot of different within the school. There are some really knowledgeable professors across all disciplines. And then also the ability to take classes in other kind of schools is really what got me in the door. I I was able to take classes in SEPA in the international affairs school, and that ultimately is what got me my job here, because there is a good connection between SEPA and the impact investing community. Our CEO went to SEPA, and I took a class. I took a class with the teacher that taught our CEO, and I was able to network that way to my current company. And right now I'm a journalist. I'm a reporter, and I write about impact investing. We're a global impact investing media platform. We write about how money goes into any impactful solution around the world. I write about climate funds and any impact fund in Latin America. I also write about carbon credits and indigenous related finance. Um, and yeah, that's kind of my general background. It's definitely not traditional, and I don't have a background in journalism, but that's how I found myself in this position.
That's great, Erik. And guys, you should totally follow Erik on LinkedIn because I see the articles get posted. They're great. So, next up, Emma, could we learn a little bit more about your kind of background and professional journey thus far and climate story? We'd love to hear it.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Emma and I'm originally Italian, so I've had to deal a lot with the visa and OPT stuff that I think should be talked about a lot also in these sessions. But if you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate. I am a CS 2025 graduate, and I joined the climate school as part of a double degree with HEC Paris Business School. So I too started in finance when back in undergrad in Italy, but I grew up with a very environmentally aware dad who was always the one telling me to shut the lights and shut the AC. It's not needed as much as you think it is. And so this is why I understood that even if I were studying finance, it was very important for me to have a purpose, as Erik said as well. And so that's how I got a little bit more into associations at university that were dealing with sustainable finance or sustainability in general for corporates. That's why I decided to then move to France to study at HEC Paris, because I knew that they had a pretty good course regarding sustainability. So I started there and I took a gap year between my first year of my master's degree and my second year of my master's degree. And that's where I studied in sustainability consulting and then corporate sustainability. And where I realized that I think the energy sector is going to drive the transition. And so this is when the partnership with the Columbia Climate School started. And so I was able to apply to the climate school for a double degree. And I thought that having more of a background that was more in climate science and being able to have electives in the energy sector or that were addressing the energy sector would be a great opportunity. That's why I decided to apply to the climate school, which was the best decision that I could make. So now I have a double degree. I have a lot of business background, but also a lot of energy and climate science background that allowed me to land where I am today. I'm now working as a junior business development at the New York Power Authority in their renewable energy team. But at the same time, in January, I'm actually moving back to Europe. Home is calling back, but I'm going to be working for Aurora Energy Research. I don't know if you know the name of the company, but I'm going to be working as a research and consulting analyst in Spain.
That's great, Emma. Congratulations. We're in Spain. Now I'm just curious.
It's going to be in Madrid.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Incredible. Congratulations. And then last but certainly not least is the one and only Hellas Lee. Hellas, can you share a little bit more? And our only class of 24, I have to acknowledge that, but that was a great class, great year. Hellas, could you share a little bit more about your background and motivations for the climate school, and then of course your professional journey thus far?
Yes. My name is Hellas Lee. I'm originally from Hong Kong and did my undergraduate degree in environmental sciences at UC Berkeley. So dealt with a lot, as Emma mentioned, with the international visas and OPT. And I always knew that I wanted to be in the climate and environmental space. I was fascinated, especially throughout my childhood, with geography, chemistry, understanding the more sort of environmental science aspects of things. And my degree throughout undergraduate was very interdisciplinary. I got to explore so many facets around environmental science in general. So I do come from a more scientific background than a lot of other people in my cohort and in this degree in general, I would say. Um, and really came to Columbia Climate School searching for not only like filling in gaps in my foundational knowledge, but also I've thought sort of the choose your own adventure allowed me to really specialize in what I wanted to specialize in. And that was really climate resilience and sort of the intersection between urban design and climate science. I knew I didn't just want to be a scientist, but wasn't sure what the next steps would be. And so moving to this master's degree has really allowed me to sort of see what the opportunities are out there and see how I think this degree really shines in how sort of applicable things can be in practice. And that certainly helped me where I am today. So I'm a sustainability planner at TY Lin International, mostly on the city solutions and transit team here. So I focus a lot on fleet electrification, emission reductions regarding transportation, as well as some sort of resiliency planning for public transit agencies here in the Northeast and soon to be also on the West Coast.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Hellas. I'm going to now pivot back to Will, and actually, this is going to be like a quick round with Will because Will's got a hard stop at 10:30. So sorry, Will. I'm going to really
No,
I'm going to
sorry,
lean
my
in.
fault.
No, no, you're golden. Are you kidding? Thank you for your time. So, really quick, Will. This is like going to be a multi-question one.
Yes.
Can you? The elective journey is always like top of mind for many students. Can you walk us through kind of what electives you took, how you approached it, and then maybe also share with us how you feel this program prepared you. You were, I always say, Will, I think you were a classic pivot
Yeah.
professional, meaning you had a robust career prior to coming, but you really wanted to lean in to get into that climate space. How did this
Yeah.
school prepare you for that pivot? So again, the elective journey and your pivot would be great.
Yeah. So I think on the elective journey, I think, um, depending on the year of the program, right? So the MA in Climate and Society program was a year. So like pretty tight in terms of like, there's all this interesting stuff I want to learn, but at the same time, like I only have a year to do it. So I think, we ended up having space for 3 elective courses, I think, in our fall semester. And really, I tried to pick, I guess my general advice would be like, I think of it in 2 ways. It's okay, make sure there's something that like is like, oh, this is just a climate topic that I'm interested in. You just like want to learn about. And then the other side of it is like starting to, and I know like, not to infuse it immediately into the education process, but like maybe what is a class that might help you get towards where you want to go professionally afterwards. So I think I was tried to be more on the exploration side, but like an element of that thinking about that and my course selection in the fall. And then I kind of figured out that energy was the space I wanted to play in through those fall electives. And then I kind of designed for that in the spring to kind of get more focused there. So I ended up taking cross registering and taking a couple classes in SUMA. And so that was something where, kind of just looking what was available in that space specifically. And I think that ended up working out really well for me. And I would say like, to kind of transition, I guess, into the second part of the question of like the skills and stuff. So I think a couple classes I took, I mean, the climate justice course, I think that was an elective course for us. I think it's a core course now on the MA program, but that's a really, really, really great course. I mean, Professor Foster's incredible. Just thinking about like how this climate impacts people disproportionately and how it kind of, there's all this history behind it and how climate's only exacerbating those things. I think that's something like as a an American, I think you think about those things in terms of our history, in terms of how we've treated certain populations, but how it continued to just be a thread into today and how climate affects that. So I think that was just something that I think is really important for someone that's working in climate, just to have that perspective of as an example. But then also I think from a very practical perspective, some of the financing renewable energy and like energy markets classes I took really laid the foundation for me to be really intelligent in my job today I guess in terms of like talking about these topics and having that background. So that's been something like as I'll give one acute example. So this summer, U.S. federal tax policy, the investment tax credit. So that's a huge input, right? At a minimum, 30% of renewable energy projects can be written down and get the tax credit from, assuming they have prevailing wages as the minimum input. That was all happening super live over the summer in terms of like our team was like lobbying in Congress trying to like get a carve out for rooftop solar. And now it's because it's being sunset next year, we're focusing on like safe harboring our stuff so that we can secure that tax credit. It gets a little complicated. You can talk to someone offline if they want to. But basically it's a very real thing of like this is a policy measure that we talked about in class and something that I was like studying. And then you see this playing out live over the summer, kind of as we were wrapping up the program, and still is very much impacting, I guess, why I have to drop early because we're so busy at our company today. But that's where I would say like some of the things. So, I mean, I would say there's really like soft things like that you just have like a basic working climate knowledge that I didn't previously have as someone who kind of came into this. I think some of my colleagues were more passionate about this earlier. This was more of a second awakening thing for me. But I think just having a baseline and having the overall vocabulary about like what's all going on in the climate change space is one. And then also some of the acute skills I think very much came through, I think, through the elective journey as well and the program overall.
That's excellent, Will. Thanks so much. And then one final question. I know you got to
Yes.
hop off. Favorite core course, just out of curiosity. For the climate
Favorite
just,
core
oh no.
course? Yeah. I would probably say we had a weird thing where mitigation was flipped for us. So I think I'd kind of created that adventure myself in the fall. But I would say, honestly, I know dynamics was honestly, I think really cool for me because like it's really, I think it's important. And like, I'm kind of I'm a nerd. I think as a lot of us are, I'm a climate nerd. So I think like learning about the physical sciences about like how, this is, obviously it's very real, but just like understanding the underlying mechanisms, I think that cause climate change and why, and kind of how to think about, the interactions of kind of our ecosystem with, kind of our activities and how it, like from a scientific perspective, it all comes together and it's very explainable and we understand it. And also the unknowns that we have too, in terms of the trajectory moving forward on how it's going to impact us as we move through the second half, the last 3 quarters of the century. I just thought that was super interesting and it allowed me to nerd out and tap into that engineering nerd scratch from undergrad too.
That's awesome. Hey, Will, thank you so much. Thank
Yeah,
you for joining the session. We really
thank you so
appreciate
much. Good
you.
luck,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. And next up, I'd love to transition to Hellas now and just ask a little bit more. Hellas, if you could share, and I want to anchor everybody. Forgive me, I mentioned the core. The core courses are regardless of what you're interested in, and we have, the alumni here are doing, I would say, very different professional roles and varying interests. But regardless, you have these core set of courses, dynamics of climate variability of change, which is the physics behind climate change. Will highlighted that. Climate mitigation, climate adaptation. We have the quantitative methods for climate application, which is the climate data course. Caroline gave a little bit of a preview, but again, regardless of your ultimate goals, you're all kind of going through this journey together. Climate justice is now a core course, was an elective previously, which is phenomenal, that transition. But I'd love to hear, Hellas, what were your thoughts on the core courses? Is there a specific one that stood out to you or a favorite?
I really appreciated sort of the breadth that was offered by the core courses. I think it really did cover everything on sort of a higher level, but really allowed everyone to get a taster of what climate and sort of the abundance of sort of topics that you can talk about within the space. So that's what I really appreciate about the core and was sort of one of my major draws to the program in the first place. I'm a little biased because I come from this background, but I do love dynamics as a core course. And it was definitely one that I most enjoyed, but also I was challenged by it in ways that I didn't expect. So I came from this background, and because of that, sort of took on a role of being able to explain things to my peers. And that was a challenge in itself, and sort of being a part of telling that story and being able to explain things and really played a part in me being able to work on my storytelling skills and be able to explain things in a accessible manner. So that's something that I really enjoyed as part of the experience that I didn't really expect coming into it. And it allowed me to be much more collaborative, which is essential in our work, and also led to sort of teaching opportunities later on throughout my sort of time at Columbia. So that's something that I really enjoyed.
That's great, Hellas. And actually, maybe I'm gonna spot like Eric on this one. Ollie asked a great question. Forgive me, Eric. I'm picking on you because I know you actually did quite a bit while in the program as it related to
Mhm.
um, working and collaborating with fellow students in different competitions. I'd love to hear that. But Ali asked that, can you share an example either of electives or social club exchanges that helped in shaping your views on the climate field and how? And I'm just curious, maybe if you could, I know that you and Nicole, I remember, and oh gosh, who else was on your team, Eric? Forgive me. You guys were getting a lot
Siddharth
of,
and
yes.
Alexandra. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Could you talk a little bit about those experiences? Maybe I think it's a tie-in with maybe what Ollie's discussing.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk more about like classes or kind of the competitions?
Both could be awesome. Both would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned before, there are some teachers kind of at Columbia, both in the climate school and at SEPA too, and in the business school that have really strong connections to the field, that are either active practitioners and that are teaching kind of part time. Um, and I took a few classes in SEPA with teachers that there was, I think my first semester there, I took a class called Sustainable Finance 2, and the teacher there, William Burkart, also he used to write for my publication like a year ago actually, kind of as he used to do op-eds. Um, he's actively writing and kind of doing a lot of work with large institutional investors such as I think the one that people would probably know is the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. He's working with CalPERS and the which is um, the California Teachers Pension Fund, and CalSTRS, which is another pension fund in California, like the largest kind of long-term investors in the world that have the ability to incorporate climate change into their strategies, and they have billions in dollars under management. He's putting together this kind of methodology on kind of trying to try to tie in like climate risk into financial theory, and and I took that class kind of my first semester, and again, I had background in more, in energy finance, but that class, and it was a very small class too, and the co-teacher was also the president of the New York State, um, I think one of the largest New York State pension funds too. So the so I took the class, and they kind of opened my eyes. They brought guest speakers in every class every week. There were 7 students, and I still stay in touch with a handful of the guest speakers. But that class really opened my eyes to kind of this world of impact investing or sustainable investing, understanding kind of like what it means, understanding the nuances and what practitioners are thinking about, understanding the different ways of integrating climate risk into your portfolios, or understanding ways in which people are actively looking to address it with their investments. And going back to your other questions, so after I took that class, that was the class that really sparked my interest in kind of this impact field. And then Siddharth, one of my friends, and another person that was in our cohort, he told us about this competition that was taking place. Or I guess for some background, it was a kind of a competition hosted by Morgan Stanley and Kellogg, which is the business school out of Northwestern University, and it was basically just like a pitch competition for it was just like an impact fund pitch competition. So I think there were maybe over 300 submissions from various universities around the world, and the top 20 would then go on to the finals in, I think, no, the top 10 would then go into the finals in London. And it was basically just a competition where you would pitch a really innovative impact fund, a fund that addressed some social or climate issue, and that had a really strong and unique structure. It had to be really innovative, and luckily we actually had some people kind of in our teaching staff that used to run the competition. I don't know if you know what's his name. I'm blanking on his name, but there's we had a TA that they used to work for Morgan Stanley, and he actually used to run the competition.
Oh, Johan Lopez?
Yeah, Johan. Yeah, Johan
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah. Johan's amazing.
he
Yeah.
used to run the competition like a few years ago, so he helped us out a lot too. Um, but yeah, we ended up reaching the finals. We pitched a green social bond that retrofitted um, green solar roofs on apartment buildings in Harlem. Um, and then yeah, they flew us out to London. We pitched. We didn't finish in the top three, so we didn't actually make any money from it. But that was at the very and that trip and that pitch was at the very end of my experience at Columbia. And coincidentally, my company, and I was starting to intern for my company back then, but coincidentally we were sponsoring that competition as well. Um, so I actually came back and wrote a story about that competition, and yeah, but I think I think there are a lot of opportunities like this, lots of competitions. You have the tournament competition too. So if you really want to learn about a specific area, there are absolutely kind of these external competitions that allow you to dig deeper, to learn more, and to collaborate with your fellow students. And I think for me, like that's where you really learn. That's where you really have like the chance to like dig deep into areas that you really find interesting. So
Awesome, Eric. Next up, if I could now pivot to Emma, and I'm going to do a double on this one. Emma, could you call out your maybe the core course you most enjoyed while in the program, but then also how did you approach that elective journey? Like, how did you make that decision around electives to choose from while in the program?
Sure. I think probably the course that I enjoyed the most was climate change mitigation with Lisa Sachs, especially because she embedded a lot of different people to speak in the classes, and that was very interesting in the first place because, as I was saying, I applied to the climate school to pivot towards the energy sector. And we were talking mitigation. A lot of it is related to the energy sector, regardless of what sector these people were working in. There was still something that was always related to energy. And so that was extremely interesting. Plus, talking to Lisa Sachs, knowing the amount of work that she does, that's always very inspiring. I think, yeah, mitigation was my favorite. And then if I had to talk about my electives, I think two things were very important for me. One, as I was saying, and I want to say it again, I needed to know more about the energy sector. I was interested in it. My dad is also in the sector, so I knew about it a little bit because I asked him questions, but it was fundamental for me to gain that kind of knowledge where I could actually work in the sector and understand what is said and done in meetings and in projects. And then the second aspect that was very important was, and it's one that I discovered actually at the climate school, first attending the climate justice course with Professor Sheila Foster, was to actually try and understand also the social side of the energy sector and how sometimes it's disregarded by developers, sometimes it is disregarded by governments as well, but it's actually very important. And it can actually get a project limited and stopped from being built. And I'm dealing with it a lot here at the New York Power Authority. So I think those two were very important for me. So two of the courses that I took were with Professor Shia Foster, indeed. And that was incredible. We worked on projects that were amazing. We were able to keep in contact with people that were actually on the ground and fighting for these social issues in the energy sector. With Will, we also were partners in a project on renewable rikers. We published this report. We talked to people who were directly involved in the project, and they still are to this day in New York City. So that was incredible. And then on the other side, to try and understand more the technical side, but also what is discussed in the energy sector, I decided to take courses in different schools, which was a bit challenging at times. But I wanted for those courses to be specifically focused on things of the energy sector that I didn't know, which at the time was a lot. I took the financing renewable energy at the climate school, which was incredible. I come from finance, but project finance was something that I'd never explored before. I was focusing more on corporate finance, and I understood that project finance is what's driving the energy sector and what's very important in on the job as well. And then to have more of a technical understanding of the energy sector, the wording, what a megawatt is, how an oil and gas plant works, how solar panels are built. I took courses at SIPA and at SPS. One that I would highly recommend would be the Energy Markets and Innovation at SPS. That was incredible to understand better the sector itself. And then I took another course that was Energy Enterprise at SIPA, and that again allowed me to develop my own fictional, of course, Energy Enterprise, and it was a small biogas community in the south of Italy. So that was, I mean, a great journey, and I think that electives were what added to the knowledge of the climate school, which is very, as you know, like climate science focused and climate justice focused as well. So, yeah.
That's excellent. Thanks, Emma. And actually, Hellas, now I feel like I skipped over you. Forgive me if I can pivot back. Hellas, tell me about your electives too. I would love to learn them.
Yeah, so I surprisingly took no climate school electives, not at the fault of any of the faculty, but I really wanted to dive in to sort of the resilience niche and sort of the urban design as well as climate science, and those were my priorities, like doing a vertical deep dive. And so I cross-registered for all of my electives, so mostly in the architecture and planning school, and then as well as with the sustainable science program and sustainable management program. So when I was looking at consulting jobs, I was like, I'm missing a little bit of the management. So I also tagged on a couple of related courses in that regard. I think some of my favorites were definitely sort of responsiveness and resilience in the built environment, which is in planning school. And it was a lot of my courses as well that I prioritized for my electives were all project-based work. So I wanted to be able to use my electives to do projects that were grounded in real life scenarios. And for that particular course, we went out to Baltimore for our final project and did sort of resilience planning along a river. And each of us had different sections that we could look at, and sort of talk to community members. We did a field trip over there. It was great. So that was what I really prioritized throughout my electives because I felt like I did have a lot of the foundational knowledge already. And so it's essentially like a 1 year immersive in various different projects, which is something that I really loved.
That's excellent. Yeah, I love that built environment lens too.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing this out there, there is still a lot of flexibility. Our program has evolved somewhat, so you still need to take at least one elective at the climate school now. Just throwing it out there for the prospective students. But yeah, that's the beauty of the MA Climate Society program. Certainly, is that flexibility to really dig deep in those topics. And what better place if you're interested in the built environment than GSAP, the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. That's awesome. And then uh, pivoting now to Caroline, I'd love to hear, although I have a feeling, I shouldn't make assumptions. I have a feeling I know which core course you found most useful given the preview you gave, but I shouldn't make assumptions. But I'd love to hear kind of the core course that you found that you enjoyed the most, and then also how you approached electives, especially as you've now transitioned into a consulting role.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I would characterize quant as my favorite, but I will say it was one of those courses, kind of like dynamics too, where if you're coming in with not that background, it was nice to kind of form study groups, get to know your peers a bit more, and kind of get through it together. One of the best things from the cohort was really the network you get afterwards. Everyone's doing such cool things and made some great friends from it. So the classes like that can also help. Elective wise, yeah, I did both climate school and outside. Some of my favorite climate school electives were the food systems course with Jess Fanzo. I did the Earth Studio course with Johanna Lavecchio, who is wonderful. So that was a great experience. It's through the climate school in the spring, so you kind of work on a project-based team with 10 other students in the cohort. We also partnered with the GSAP school last year, kind of focusing on climate adaptation and decarbonization in post-extractive kind of coastal zones. We focused in Rio de Janeiro last year, so we got to go during spring break for the week. Very justice-centered kind of design, combining both field research and spatial analysis and stakeholder engagement down there. I worked on a shipyard, so it was very marine infrastructure, kind of offshore energy related as well. And so I could kind of bring in my marine background to that too. Yeah, I think outside of the climate school, like a lot of my peers, I tried to get just more basics. So I took some SUMA classes, which have helped inform a bit of what I'm doing now, consulting wise, just to get that sustainability consulting kind of basics down. But I think, again, just from the core, getting that broad overview, I'm almost surprised kind of some days when a little light bulb goes off from a random class throughout just how broad the core gives you that baseline. So yeah, I think just one other tidbit too. I really tried to just pack it all in there. You can do the 20 hours for taking electives. It's kind of a lot, but worth it in the end. So yeah, happy to talk more about any of that.
Awesome, Caroline. Thank you. And actually, some of your responses. And Will's back. Will, it's like we got to select. Like it's a return. This is great. So I what I wanted to actually now pivot to, and so I'm going to open it up to the Q&A. And specifically, I'd love to. Uh, I'd love to first question relates to, I think I saw a question about kind of courses. Forgive me, they're like they were there and then they disappeared. So forgive me. But if you guys can speak to anybody now, anybody that feels they can address this, is the idea of the nature of the classes being project based or and actually Hellas actually did address part of this, and Caroline, I feel like you did too. But what's the like the balance between project-based courses and forgive me, I feel like that was it answered already? Damaris, did we answer that question? It was there, and I really liked it. But does anybody want to answer like, hey, what's the cadence of the courses? Is it more project-based? Are they more test-heavy? I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on it. Anybody that wants to go? Anybody?
I think it really depends on the class, but I would say depending on what side of the world you come from, it's going to feel very different. Coming from Europe, especially Italy, it's very test heavy, university kind of environment. So I would have class for like 2 months, and then after 2 months they would test us. In the US, it's very different. And at Columbia, I learned that you have to stay on top of everything that you're doing in class because you're gonna be basically tested every week, but not in the way that is only tests, online to answer some questions, but it's also sometimes handing in part of the project that you're working on, giving a presentation, or just writing a paper, which was something that also I had never done before, coming from financial and business school background and in Europe. So it was very kind of different style. But you're also going to find yourself in some classes that have a big test. The energy markets and innovation one, will remember. We studied together a lot for it. It was a big test. But that was kind of like a one-time thing, and it was probably the only class where we had this big test that had to be taken at the end, and it was basically a big part of the grade. But the nice thing about every course is that you either have different projects and different tests, and that they are graded as small part of the final grade. So that is great. If you're not doing well on one of the, let's say, dynamics midterms, then you can still do better next time and get a good grade anyway.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that. Um, and then another question relates to for the folks that came to the program without a climate-specific background, is there anything that you wish you did before enrollment to better prepare yourself for the coursework? That's a great question. Did anybody, I'll say this before the panelists, we do have a math boot camp that we offer each summer in the lead up to your first semester in the program that's completely free and a great resource. But I'd love to hear, was there any anxiety among, actually, hey, Erik, hands up, I saw. Go for it, Erik.
Yeah,
And
I
Will
mean,
too.
I think well, I mean, again, I had a little bit of an, like, I had a bit of a background, but I think the most important thing is, I don't think there are any like technical skills that are like vital for the program or to be in this space. But I think it's really important to understand the context of where we are right now. So I think really just like reading up on kind of where, reading up on COP, reading up on where we are in terms of global negotiations. I mean, understanding what Trump is doing and how that is having ripple effects across the world. So, and also just understanding kind of the nature of the climate crisis. I'm sure like a lot of people do understand that, but like understanding what that looks like and how that's evolving right now, because I think we're at a pretty crucial point, kind of in yeah, we're at a pretty crucial point in time, and I think if you were to come in like next year, it's there's going to be a lot happening just like throughout the school year. So I think having that context will be very helpful.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think like I was someone who wasn't really super like I wasn't super focused on like climate stuff like from an academic perspective, like undergrad, I didn't do anything with it or anything like that. And I will say like at you could to do nothing from a prep perspective as far as like climate content and be absolutely fine. So like that's one thing I would offer. Technical skills wise, I mean you can try to get ahead of it, but like sometimes I just find like in the class itself is really like where you're gonna just like learn what you need to do. I think one thing I will say though, just piggybacking on one of Erik's comments, is like once you're in the program, assuming you come and join, I definitely think like supplementing what you're learning in the class with reading current events and articles, like news and articles, is really really important and something I didn't do enough of. The class Emma mentioned again, the energy markets class is one of the things our professor encouraged us to do is like read about energy news, think about that, but you could apply that to any class. I think it's just taking it outside of the classroom. What interests you? Okay, go explore that outside the class. That would be a recommendation. I think more so than prep in is as you're in the program, like explore those things kind of as they come up on class on your own, because that's it's supposed to be part of your, I think, education.
That's excellent. And then
I
Reed's
think
asking, oh yeah, go
one
for it.
super small thing, it's gonna be very fast. Check all the events of Climate Week before you arrive in New York City.
Yeah.
Climate Week is incredible. October is going to be a hectic month. You've just started the climate school. You need to know what you want to see, who you want to meet. Just check it out because tickets go fast, appointments go fast. Like you never know how much is going to happen in that week. So do it, I guess, in the first weeks or just before arriving in New York, I think.
I would also just piggyback off of that and say the same about kind of looking at professors and classes beforehand too. It's very easy to get kind of overwhelmed because Columbia has so much going on, such great research, great resources. So kind of getting ahead and maybe scoping out professors that might be doing really interesting work or just other things that might be helpful and what you want to kind of focus on is always helpful too.
That's excellent. I just want to say a huge thank you to Hellas. Hellas has to hop off now, but thank you, Hellas, so much for sharing your perspectives. I know we have just a couple more minutes left, but thank you again so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Um,
You're muted, Alfred.
you're good to me, Caroline. Thank you so much. Can you, in terms of the capstone, so I want to just anchor everybody on the call. There's no thesis at Columbia Climate School across the programs. There has been an interesting evolution. All of our alumni on this call were given a choice of either a capstone or an internship. The MA Climate Society program has since evolved to strictly a capstone project, although internships are still available as a possibility with climate finance. So I would love to, if everybody could share with me which they chose in terms of that practical applied experience. Caroline, for example, did you do an internship or a capstone?
Yeah, I did the internship. Honestly, until the last minute, I was maybe planning on doing the capstone. Sometimes that's how it goes. But I worked with EDF this past summer, on their global coastal resilience strategy. So I kind of helped to identify high risk, high opportunity, kind of coastal and ocean-based geographies where EDF could kind of drive the most change. Very equity centered and climate adaptation related. And I also worked with their Aquatic Blue Food Coalition, kind of contributing on some sustainable ocean and food systems policy and supported their communications. Yeah, I think really just stalking LinkedIn online a lot can help. I applied to that role, I think the day it was posted, and sometimes that just helps. But yeah, I will say I have a lot of friends in the program who did the capstone as well. Everyone had great experiences.
That's great, Caroline. And Damaris went ahead and included the capstone workshop recordings. So just for all the prospective students out there, you can see all the clients that we worked with over the last 2 years, the specific projects that they were working on, and then an actual presentation on YouTube for each project. So I'm going to encourage that. Because we're coming close to time, I think one of the most important questions is the one that Murphy has asked in the Q&A, and it was, how were your first conversations with the career resource team at the climate school, and kind of how were they in terms of their, I should say this more broadly, how did the climate school prepare you for your next chapter professionally? We do have a phenomenal career resource team. Very high touch, very white glove, as they like to describe it. But maybe if we could, I'd love to hear. I'm going to pick on you, Erik. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of experiences with the team and how you feel it prepared you?
Um, and again, I got my job just through a professor at SEPA. Um, again, I think the climate school, especially our program, it's so interdisciplinary where there are so many different career options, and some people are taking classes and have backgrounds that are more suitable for some careers, and then if you're making a very hard pivot, obviously it's a bit more challenging, and you have to put yourself in a position to where you're prepared to apply and be a good candidate for those types of jobs. I met with the career people, and they were super helpful in helping me identify kind of what I wanted to go into, and they connected me with some people, when I first joined, and they frequently put on events. I think they have speakers, people in the industry come and speak every like few weeks or every month. But yeah, I think they're I'd say really leverage your professors, um, really leverage the clubs and the initiatives, and a lot of people in the program like will get their jobs kind of without really even having to apply. A lot of people just meet professors or meet people, or meet alumni, or find themselves in a room and they impress someone at a climate week event. So I'd say like those opportunities are quite abundant, and you're going to meet like a lot of people in the space, and I think really it's really just dependent on kind of on these students, just willingness to put themselves in those positions. Um, but yeah, the career resources team, they provide resources, they have those sessions, and they're always there for you, which is a huge bonus too. They're always willing to hop on a call. Mindy is available with like a 2 hour notice, and she'll hop on a call with you. So yeah, so they've been great.
Thanks, Erik. I see Caroline's hand to go up. That's Mindy Levinson, by the way, our director of career management team. Phenomenal. Yeah, go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, just to briefly go off that, Ava was who I worked with specifically, who was the other kind of right hand man of Mindy. But I had a great experience with them. It was definitely very helpful coming straight from undergrad to have a very hands-on team helping. I know a lot of people could, set up meetings, and I did a once a month meeting with Ava to kind of check in and make sure I was on the right track for kind of what I wanted to accomplish career-wise. And it's another kind of choose your own journey where, like Erik said, they're pretty available. So if you want to kind of make it a regimen, they're willing and able to help you. Just wanted to add that in.
I really appreciate that. And then just if, and I'm not sure, does Will or does anybody else have one to add on that one final note? If Go for it, Emma. Yeah.
About my job through the Ivy Sustainability Career Fair, so I just wanted to give a big shout out to the career team because I feel like Mindy prepared us pretty well for the career fair. So that was great. And another note, I think this year they're going to be extremely prepared. Last year, I think we also, a very nice thing was that we collaborated with the career team a lot. They came into the climate field, but they weren't experts in the jobs in the climate field, even if they had worked with Columbia still. So I think there was also this cross collaboration with the alumni and with the students, and that helped a lot for us to try and understand how to approach the the job search, but for them also to understand what the interests are and what companies are probably the best to approach. So
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I just want to say huge thank you, all of you, for giving your times. Emma, Caroline, Erik, Will, Hellas, I know had to hop off, but I just want to say thank you again. I can see we got great feedback in the Q&A. Some students said this is the best session so far. You guys make it the best. So I want to say again, thank you so much for your time, your perspectives, and making the world a better place. You're all change agents. So I really love seeing the work that all of you are doing. So if you do have any questions, I really want to emphasize to contact the admissions office. Erik is being very generous as it relates to LinkedIn. Thank you, Erik, and definitely check out Erik's articles, by the way, guys. I'm plugging it. I'm plugging it hard. So they're great, great articles. So again, thank you all for your time. And the application is live for fall 2026. If you haven't started an application yet, we highly recommend it. Our application priority deadline is January 15th. And again, have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. Thank you to our alumni. Take care.
thank you, Alfred.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Alfred.
Bye.
Thank you guys.